I wanted to talk about Ron Paul and touch a little bit on issues like minarchism and political activism. Ron Paul, as far as I can tell based on his actions, his words, and his job, is not a libertarian or a strict liberal, however you want to put it. He's a constitutionalist. He seems to be kind of a Taft-style Republican, and I don't think very highly of either republicanism or the constitutionalist slant. He has represented a lot of the same bogus depictions of American history that I talked about in my Constitution video. And overall, if anything, he favors local tyranny over federal tyranny, which is, arguably better, but at the same time, that's not a libertarian stance. He's sometimes said things that make him sound like a libertarian, then he contradicts himself and he waffles. And the very fact that he's just a big pro-immigration restriction, anti-abortion, big on sending lots of pork and revenues into his district, he's obviously not a functional libertarian. I won't pretend to read his mind, but I think that really doesn't matter. I think he's a very poor face for libertarianism, and yet a lot of people, even so-called anarchists, such as guys over at the Mises Institute, treat him like he's some sort of demigod, and they actually get upset if you criticize him. Now, I would prefer that Ron Paul was in the government, say the presidency, in some ways, in that I think he may lead to some reduction in government power, but at the same time it's kind of questionable, one, how much he could do, because it's a fantasy to think that the president is just like a king and he gets to go in and do what he wants. Not that real kings could do that, but the White House staff itself controls a lot of information and orders and how things get implemented. The whole bureaucracy in the executive branch especially has a vested interest. The State Department does not want to close down our military bases, and they will fight that tooth and nail. The major ideologies of both parties are opposed to that. I wouldn't be surprised if he actually got assassinated if he was elected, and if not, he would be thoroughly obstructed. And even if he did anything, the second he was out of office, they would just start growing it again. These people don't have an interest in reducing and keeping reduced the scope of government power, and there are millions of them. There's no way one septuagenarian doctor from Texas is going to make a huge impact on this Leviathan. Which goes to a further point, which I think political libertarianism is useless. I can sort of understand, for example, Rothbard and Lysander Spooner made some arguments that why we could, in theory, act within politics and it wouldn't a priori be objectionable. But I think they're wrong for two reasons. One, it doesn't work. We have been trying to make governments liberal for at least 200 years, and the closest we came to, at least in the official form of ideology, was probably the American Republic, and it instantly became tyrannical, and it's now the hegemon of the entire world. It's the world empire. that worked out pretty shitty, and that's also another reason why I'm not sure I would want Ron Paul to get into power, because even if he was successful, what would he do? He'd end up stabilizing the American empire, and that may be better for some of its citizens in the short term, but in the long term, that clearly does not seem to be a good idea. If you have a weak government, especially one with as crazy tendencies as Republican governments have, people are going to get rich, and they're going to put up with the government, and the government's going to creep up on them, and then it's going to have all of this power, and it's just going to overrun everything. I think limited government and minarchism, constitutionalism, those are fantasies. They fail. They won't work for reasons that are well understood in political economy. And somebody as intelligent as Ron Paul, who has read as much, should understand that. I mean, he's not just some, Thomas Sowell supply sider. This guy is personal friends with Lew Rockwell. He was friends with Murray Rothbard. And some people have used that to say that, well, he really is a libertarian. Well, maybe, secretly in his sort of Christian moralistic fantasies, he favors that, but I think his approach to it and his actual practices do not line up with that. A really crazy thing I heard was somebody on the Mises forum, who will remain anonymous, claimed that Ron Paul was an anarcho-capitalist, which is just silly. I mean, what the fuck are you talking about? But whatever, his secret ideology is not something that concerns me. I just think that if you get involved in politics, your organizational structures and your ideology are going to get watered down, and they're going to get corrupted, and they're going to turn into something completely different. I mean, look what happened to classical liberalism. It had this initial statist Republican slant, at least in most of its forms, and the statist Republican humanist motif took over liberalism. There's nothing left of classical liberalism that would be recognizable as, strict liberalism or libertarianism. It's all just Republican humanism, this democratic humanism. And I just find the idea that some libertarian organizations could get involved with politics and appeals to the masses via, various democratic mediums is seriously mistaken. Look at what Cato has become. It's just efficiency expertise for the state. Look at the Chicago school. They've completely degraded from anything that's recognized as real liberalism, and they've basically become neoliberal. Look at the Libertarian Party. I mean, they've demolished their platform, and all these people that they're putting up for office, Wayne Allen Root, Bob Barr, these people are not even not libertarians in the way that Ron Paul isn't a libertarian. These people are not libertarian in the way that Auguste Pinochet is not a libertarian. These people are basically progressives who are for big government, but they want to cut certain things that they consider to be inefficient uses of government power and things that don't actually work out in the government's favor. And you could argue that's better, I guess, but I still wouldn't want to promote any of them. These guys are idiots and they're scumbags. Now, a final point before I stop this here is that every time people get involved in political organizations and political campaigns and promoting different people, that is sending money and energy and resources into areas that it can never be recovered from, that will almost entirely be used to not only not press the liberal agenda, but actually attract anti-liberal people like these white nationalists, or in the Cato case, the Beltway progressives, into the quote-unquote liberal or libertarian movement. And these people ruin it. They wreck it. They start promoting crazy shit. And then people associate libertarianism with, white nationalism and the civil rights movement and stuff. And it's completely counterproductive. And it's a huge waste of money. It's a waste of your time. And it's a complete fantasy to imagine that you're going to be able to do something and go, liberty in our lifetimes. No, it's not going to happen. The most liberty you can get in your lifetime is by taking steps to protect yourself, help yourself. And there's absolutely no chance that you're going to see either, a sort of minimalist plutocracy like the American government was in the 19th century, and certainly not any substantial anarchistic society, no matter how many billions of dollars you throw on Ron Paul. And the core reason is because people don't want that. They don't understand that. They don't have any background in it. And it pretty well repels them. There are various reasons for this, but it's just not going to happen. That's the point. And the idea that you're going to get, any significant increase in liberty in your lifetime, unless you move to another country, is absurd. And you should probably stop wasting your time and energy on hopeless endeavors.